Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Lucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men. We will graduate players. And we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
Very thankful for 12th man. They've won us games.
Been in college baseball for a while now, but I've never experienced anything like 12th man.
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
Our skill set worked great together. Like, he was more speed and I was more power, and then we put together, it was like thunder and lightning, you know.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Sometimes, OB, I feel like Hans and Franz, you know, because we're such a fitness show.
Pump you up.
Yeah, we're pump you up. We're a fitness show, right? So, look, Tommy Moffitt effect is real. You have to deal with it, guys. We're going to talk about it because yesterday we had the privilege of sitting front row of the player scrum, quote unquote. It was not really a press conference setting, but kind of, right? Yeah. And several of these players, and we can bring them up. But if I were to say to you, who looks like they were sculpted from clay, a Greek god?
Yeah, I know where you're going with that. Shamar Stewart is, he's always been a big dude.
This is different. Yeah,
I mean, he goes in there and you're like, are you trying to be the next Myles Garrett? You know, hopefully he can be in productivity, but now Myles is a different breed because he really goes into. He's actually said he's trying to look like a Greek god,
right? And
now I think there are Greek gods that want to look like Myles. But Shamar Stewart, you come in and you're like I said, he's always been a big guy, but yesterday you went,
bigger.
Oh my gosh,
more cut.
Yeah, and just the width at the shoulders, right? And you can tell he's really put in a lot of work. And hopefully, I'll say this: if the production on the field
matches the
production that he's had in the weight room, those 15 sacks that he says he wants to get, which come on, but
why not?
Well, Vaughn, I think, had 16 and a half in 2009.
Right.
Von Miller. Great goals. Shoot for the stars because or shoot for the moon because even if you only get the stars, you know, you still done amazing things or something like that. You know, I don't.
But he even said last year, if you look at it, he goes how close he was to like how many almost sacks that he had.
Yeah, almost sacks. And you're right. You can get there and he was right. The quarterback can just, you know, throw the ball when you're there. You can affect the quarterback. He had 6 quarterback hurries to go with 2 sacks last year. And again, remember they had that revolving door. Mm-hmm. So the thing about Shamar that I remember, and this all tie in, more than the sacks, is a face mask penalty he got.
That's right.
It was against New Mexico. They're running an end around, a wide receiver, and unfortunately, when he reached out, he grabbed the face mask. But Shamar caught the wide receiver. He's a defensive end, right now he's 290. I don't know what he was then. And he was able, even if it's New Mexico, it's a wide receiver, he's able to run him down in the backfield. Now, when he reached out to him, he inadvertently got the face mask. But the point is, he's always had incredible speed for a defensive end. And now he's not just tall and fast. Now he's big and cut and muscular and is he gonna? Does that translate to more power? He could be that. Is he going to be a complimentary rusher to Nick Scorton, or is Nick Scorton going to be?
Right. You know, a great problem to have. Right.
It really is. It kind of reminds me, and unfortunately, it didn't completely play out the way we thought it would. But it kind of reminds me of what we were thinking. Me and Gabe and other people were. When it was, was that 2015? When you had Myles Garrett on one side and Deshaun Hall on the other. And Myles was great. And Deshaun had a hell of a game against Arizona State, but really wasn't as big a factor in the pass rush as we thought it'd be. And I think we expect a lot from Nick Scorton on one side. Can Shamar Stewart be that guy on the other side that's just as big of a threat or close to as big a threat. And based on the way he looked yesterday, you're thinking, yeah, God, why not?
Obi, you know that I've used this term before, and I liked hearing it yesterday, playing angry. There's certain players, I think, play better that way. Others, it doesn't work for them. But if you know how to get to a certain level of nasty and angry, and I want my defensive line and my offensive line to be nasty. I want them to play angry. I want them just to, like, eat raw meat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he talked about yesterday. Because I asked him, if you remember at the end of last year, it seemed like he had turned a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I asked him, what happened? Here's a soundbite from yesterday. That was a good bite. That was one of my favorite ones. There we go.
Oh yeah, I started playing angry. I started playing angry for sure. So that was really the big difference.
Why angry?
You know, some people say you gotta be a little crazy in the head if you be a football player. So I started getting a little crazy.
You found that?
Yeah.
Do you do anything in particular to get out that crazy before a game, during the game? Do you think of anything?
I think of what I want my life to be like after football.
What he wants his life to be like after football, because he even mentioned it at one point. We all know what the third year is like, because this is his grade year. This is the year, right? That if he wants to be a first, second, third round pick, obviously he wants to be a first round pick.
Yeah, obviously.
This is the year he's got to put those numbers up.
Yeah, he's got to go from being a guy that with a lot of potential and some production to being a guy with just a lot of production.
Yep.
And again, you can look at him and say he's obviously the Moffitt effect, but he's obviously bought in and has put in the work to try to get better. Now we'll see if it translates, but I guarantee you this: I'd rather go into a season with a guy that looks like he's put in all the work and then see if it works out than a guy that, you know.
I'm glad you bring that up. Sometimes going to the weight room and getting bigger and stronger doesn't always work. I think in football on the defensive line it absolutely works. And to me, it's the level of commitment. That speaks more than to get that body, you have to be committed to your diet, to your sleep, to your fitness routine. You have to. And if you're that committed and you're following those steps, it will translate in all walks of life.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a good year of football. Now, I'm very optimistic about Shamar, right? Because, you know, again, all the tools are there. You know, we talked about earlier just how fast he is, and he's got size, and he's obviously added some strength and power. You're thinking, okay, what else is there? But you know, you've heard the phrase. I'm not saying this is the case with Shamar, but you know, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. He's a workout warrior. You know, you've seen guys in the NFL, man, they get drafted.
But I'll say the difference in that is, if you were already pretty good, and you put on the muscle and the strength. It's different when you just look a certain way, but you've never been that guy. I think Shamar has been that guy.
Well, I think he's been
glimpses of that guy.
Glimpses, yeah. Because and I'm not saying it's all him, right? You know, there's no secret that I have questioned the strategy of the former defensive coordinator and his methods, and you know, some of it didn't make sense to me, and maybe in a different situation Shamar would have gone, but Shamar needs to become a dominant player.
Yep.
He looks like he can play the role of the dominant player. If you're doing the whole cast, you know, you're the casting director and you're going through the pictures.
He looks like he can play the part.
This looks like the guy that's going to play the part.
Yeah. The
now,
new James Bond.
He's just got to be. He's just got to play it now.
Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't the only one yesterday that was physically imposing. Are you familiar with the guy Chase Basantis?
Yeah, Basantis is a big dude. Now, Basantis looks like a guard's supposed to look,
but lost the baby fat.
Lost the baby step, but still, I mean, he's not like sculpted into everything. He looks like just a big, strong guy
guard.
That's gonna. And he looks like, I mean, he's going back where he needs to be at guard. I mean, that's his position. That's where he's going to be best. And he even says it. You know, he likes that. You know, being in there with the big guys and mix it up. And he seems to have the right attitude too. My all-time favorite offensive lineman, besides Steve McKinney, is a guy I don't even know his name. He's the guy, you'll remember, he's the guy from Tennessee a couple of years ago that when they were beating Alabama, he threw up.
Oh, yeah.
And he looked at the Alabama guys throwing up. When he threw up on himself and then looked at him.
Yeah.
That's an offensive lineman to me. I'm going to vomit and still come at you, and you're disgusted with me. I'm not saying that Chase is going to throw up on himself. He would probably throw up on somebody else. But he just seems that he's got that, he even kind of referred to it, just that big, strong guy with a nasty quality about him that, I don't just want to push you around. I want to just rip the soul from your body kind of guy.
By the way, there's a quiet confidence and intimidation factor with Albert Regis.
Yeah, Albert.
There was an intensity in his eyes and the way he spoke that I was like, I'm not going to mess with that guy. I'm not messing with any of them.
Well, first of all, Albert's a really nice guy,
yes.
and he's a really, really smart guy. And I think he's a guy that's can be an effective run stopper in the role that he plays. I don't know, unless he proves me wrong. I don't know that he's going to give you a big pass rush, a big inside pass rush, but hopefully he adds that. But I think Albert is going to provide some good depth behind Shamar Turner and David Hicks, DJ Hicks.
But did you see what I'm saying? His eyes spoke a little bit, the way he answered questions, very matter of fact, but very sure without being cocky.
Well, I'm sure that Albert has understands that he's looked at as a backup, a reserve, and probably feels like, hey, I'm more. I can, even if I'm not the quote starter, I'm more. He probably feels like he's more than a quote backup. I'm not just a spare part to come in when somebody needs a breather. And
I think he's the one who said that yesterday, right? I think he said something to the effect our backups were basically starters, is how he phrased it.
So he has a lot of confidence in himself, as he should, and probably feels probably has a little bit of chip on his shoulder to show people that I'm better than you think.
And then the other one we talked to, Mark Naboo. He's got a different kind of vibe to him to Shamar. Shamar's got this intimidating. I feel like Naboo comes across as he could be your neighbor, invite you over for a barbecue, but also kick your butt.
Oh, yeah. He's the guy. He's the head of Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah.
But
he's very friendly about it.
And
Sir,
all the things I said about, the nasty and vomity lineman that I like. You don't want that from your center, because your center's got to be able to get in there.
He's got to be smart.
But he's got to be a smart guy too. And it looks like Naboo is going to be playing center. Looks like.
Yep.
So even though he played guard most of last year, I'll say this. Look, we all know that.
He said he had never snapped until last year.
I know it. So, hey, here's an idea. Let's put a guy that's never snapped, put him right out there. And he did well. He also scored a touchdown, remember, against LSU.
That's right.
He was the answer. He was the answer to that problem, of that short yardage problem. They should have just been turning around and giving it to Mark Naboo.
Didn't you make a comment about that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But I came away, look, physically, again, you wouldn't be here in that position if you weren't a big guy, right? Everywhere in the SEC guy. But there's just a difference, it appears to me. Does it appear to you?
It appears to, and obviously we have to, but we got to see how it plays out. That's for everybody. We got to see how Texas does in the SEC. We got to see how Oklahoma, there's a lot of things we have to see how it plays out. But if I'm judging a situation on August the 6th, 2024, I'm feeling like, at least physically and mentally, this team is light years ahead of where they were last year. Just looking at them.
Yeah,
now, we haven't seen them in pads. We have, that's coming.
Right. It's one of those deals like you watch Kenyon Green as junior, and you were coming into the year, and Kenyon, and he was like, it doesn't matter. I've seen him play at a high level. I mean, a high level.
Right.
I know he can. So if he's lifted weights and looks better, or if he hasn't, it doesn't matter.
You feel good.
I know what this guy can do. We're still trying to find out. We got an idea what we think Mark Naboo is going to do at center, and what we think that Chase Basantes is going to do when he's back at his natural position. We still got to see it, right? But
we feel good.
But you don't go all in on on the flop.
No. By the way, we're 15 minutes into
Already.
this segment, and people might be thinking they're listening to NPR. No, this is actually TexAgs Radio. You probably knew that.
Yeah, I knew that.
We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Yeah, is NPR?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't listened to them in a while.
I don't think so.
We are
neither.
in the I know you haven't in the Rollo Insurance Studio.
Yeah, old Jason Rollo.
And this is the Go Hour.
It is.
And that's presented by a group of great friends.
CC Creations.
That's absolutely true. And if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning,
Senior.
we'll pick up the call at 979-693-1150 on the what? The Boss?
The Boss.
Firearms Hotline.
I was going to say hotline, but I was thinking, wait, there's another word I'm supposed to throw in there. Firearms.
By the way, Boss Firearms.
Like David Nuño. He's got those firearms.
Bro, like I feel like, you ever feel like when you're
Flex, David.
No.
Flex, come on.
We just showed Shamar Stewart on camera. I am not flexing.
Shamar,
you know, like it's like when you are the model in a little small town.
Yeah, I'm always the before picture. the before and after, I'm always the before. I don't want my wife to see any pictures of Shamar Stewart. I don't want her to say, why can't you look like this?
Well, genetics.
Because I'm a sloppy old fat guy, that's why.
Genetics, work ethic, personality. There's a lot of reasons. Sorry, OB.
She'll probably say, yeah, work ethic for sure. That's number one.
By the way, Boss
Firearms
provides high-quality firearms and components to their civilian and law enforcement customer base. See what you got for yourself at bossfirearms.com. Can we go around the room and say hi?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do that. Let's go behind the glass and say hi to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
How are you?
I'm good. How's everyone doing in there?
Very well. I mean, I would think Nick's a type of guy that's dabbled with firearms.
I bet you Nick is strapped right now. I don't know if he's allowed to be in the building. I don't know what the rules are.
America, David. Of course. I can do what
Texas.
I want. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's an even better point.
You know, one time, like, Nick pulled a fake gun on me. Like, he did the hand thing. Like, he was like, what would happen if? And you remember that, Nick?
Yeah, I did. I didn't pull out, like, a physical,
No, you did your fingers.
Don't make it sound like I'm pointing, like, toy guns at you or something. That'd be weird. But anyways.
Snoop Nicky Nick?
Pardon?
With the gun? Snoop Nicky Nick?
He did a little pow pow, like that kind of gun.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Yeah. Anyways, completely sidetracked, not even football related. I don't know if y'all saw Bronny's tweet yesterday, but he put out that former A&M catcher Troy Claunch has retired from professional baseball, and he's going to come complete his degree and become a student assistant to work within that coaching staff. And if you think about, I was thinking about how key that is for a guy who transferred to A&M, had success here in his 1 year, and the way college baseball is trending with transfers coming in, playing a year, and then going off, like how key that perspective is to those guys. So I feel like that's just another. It's like the Infinity Gauntlet. What's it called, David? Collecting the stone. Just another one in it. Why not?
Just another stone. You know about the Infinity Stones, right, Obi?
You mean Keith Richards?
By the way, Bronny's listening, and he says, I'm leaving for vacation today.
He is.
Yeah, and he says, can you please let Olin know that the swim trunks he let me borrow were actually a Speedo that had Beast Texas across the backside.
Yeah, those are my favorites.
Yeah.
And I figured, Bronny might want to borrow them, look good on
They look more like a thong on Bronny.
Yeah, I won't say what I said to him yesterday, what he suggests as much. I'll tell you off air what I said.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. By the way, thank you, Nick. Caitlin Torn is there. Caitlin, hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
How you been?
I'm good. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. What's going on in your world?
Not much. Getting ready to start classes coming up.
When is that? 2 weeks? 10 days? What?
2 weeks.
Okay.
A little more. Not really ready to get back in the swing of that, but excited to be back in College Station.
Well, we're happy to have you back. What news do you have for us this morning?
We have had some chatter in the YouTube chat about Notre Dame's left tackle.
Oh yeah. That's gonna be a
Charles.
topic.
I don't want to butcher this name. Charles.
Practice. Just practice. I want to see it happen.
Charles Jagasaw.
Yes.
Was that right?
Yes.
Usually I don't get that.
Oh, you try it now.
Jagasaw.
Well, that was cheating.
That was good.
It's copying me. But
Charles J.
Charles J.
CJ is actually what his friends call him.
That's what we call my brother.
Chuck.
Anyways, tore his right pec during preseason camp and will be out for the season, putting Notre Dame in a tough spot since both of their starting tackles from last year were also lost to the draft. So bad news for him, possibly good news for us with this game in, 25 days?
OB, let's do an actual segment on this on the other side because I think this is interesting. I won't share what our dialogue was yesterday when we found out because that wouldn't be good. But we could kind of tap dance around it.
Yeah, we can tap dance.
Yeah, let's do
like
that.
Gregory Hines.
White Knights, great movie.
Yeah, I did like that
Mikhail Baryshnikov. You look like a Baryshnikov kind of guy.
I'm light on my feet.
Is he still with us?
I haven't heard anything that he's not.
Is Hines? I don't think Hines passed, right?
Passed
He was great. All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back. We'll talk that. And then after that, 24 and 24.
24 and 24.
Right now, sponsorship and vendor opportunities with the Association of Former Students. If your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, you need to reach out to the Association of Former Students because they bring Aggies of all ages together throughout awesome events that are held throughout the year. Marquee events like Aggie Ring Day, all Aggie Hullabaloo Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities available to get your brand in front of attendees. All events offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. These options include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition in social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, you need to choose a partner that has been with the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. That is sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. It's the Association of Former Students. Back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. I know I haven't put the post on the premium boards of what we have on the show today, so to the two people that complain, I apologize. I'll get that up next segment, but it's going to be a good show. That's all you need to know. OB, we talked about it for a quick moment, but let's talk about the situation at Notre Dame. Charles Jagashaw. Mm-hmm. He's a freshman, or excuse me, I think he's a freshman, right?
Well, I mean, he played last year, but I don't know if he played. I
think he's a redshirt freshman.
I know he started like the bowl game.
I think he's a redshirt freshman. He was expected to be the right tackle for the season.
Left
tackle, sorry. He was expected to start this year, so it is a huge loss to an offensive line that lost 2 dudes to the NFL. Right. And you had already told me just yesterday, you had been talking to a Notre Dame insider, that you thought potentially their offensive line was actually going to be a work in progress, that they weren't, even though they're known for their offensive line, there's a lot of new pieces, and they just lost another piece.
Well, so they got a really good guard. I think his name's Coogan. I know it's a good Irish name. But, yeah, this contact I have up there who covers them was telling me back in either May or June that they were really concerned about tackle. You know, they knew they were going to lose Joe Alt, who was the 5th player taken, and they had, I think his name's Blake Fisher. I think his name's Blake. Maybe it's a different name, but it's Fisher. And they were hoping that he was going to be back and be the cornerstone at tackle that they were going to build from. And yet he did maybe surprised them a little bit by going to the draft. He was a 2nd-round pick of the Texans. So now they're like, okay, maybe it was Ivy. I can't even remember that guy's name, but he was the 2nd-round pick of the Texans. Anyway, so now they were scrambling. Okay, we got to go into the transfer portal hard to get some tackles. So they did that. Well, they got turned down. And so they got into spring, and tackle's a problem. They started moving guys around. He was telling me that they had some guys who have been, 5th-year seniors that were backups at guard that they're moving out to tackle because they're trying to find tackles, but they felt good about Jacksaw.
Yeah.
So they felt good there. Well, now he's out. And they got a guy named Toth. I can't remember if it's what his name. I'd have to look it up. Well, it was a guy's about 6'8", 320 that's probably moving into there, who was a top 100 recruit, but has been there a while and hadn't been able to get into the starting offensive line. Maybe a little bit slow foot.
His name, it looks to be Tosh Baker.
Tosh Baker. That's exactly who it is. He's about 6'8", about 320, and apparently he's a little bit slow, and he hadn't played a lot.
Right.
And he's been there a while. You were looking at it. Does it say what year he's in?
No, it doesn't.
No, okay. So anyway, that's the guy that looks like that they're going to have to put in at that position. And, sometimes guys step up, right? But, we were talking about it before the show today. The guy who's, since Myles Garrett left, the guy who's had the most sacks in a season for Texas A&M is Landis Durham.
Yep.
Grad student. He's been around a while. So I guess the point I'm making is no one expected Landis Durham to be what he was until he got that chance. So maybe this guy is going to get this opportunity.
And be the guy.
But like Nick just told us, this guy's a grad student who's not played much, and you would think that they probably would rather not have to put him in this situation if he is slow of foot.
Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely big enough foot, but if he is, what is I think you're giving A&M a big edge with Nick Scorton, lining up against him in an obvious 3rd down situation.
A couple things about that. Nobody felt sorry for A&M.
Oh, no.
When offensive linemen got hurt.
Quarterbacks got hurt.
Nobody felt sorry for us. And I'm not rooting for anybody to get hurt, I don't care if you're not playing, bro. For my purposes, I hope you get healthy, and I hope you get to play this season, right? Just like I'm sure people were not sad that Jabri Barber got hurt. Well, he's hopefully going to be back earlier than expected.
Yeah.
So I hope this young man comes back. But nobody felt sorry for us, so I'm not going to feel sorry for Notre Dame. Also, I think that the defensive line is an area of our team that I don't think we think it's going to take a while to gel. I think they're going to be good to go day one.
Yeah, I think so. I feel really good about the defensive line. And I guess when you make projections for that game, and we'll get more into it obviously as we get closer, but when you make projections to that game and you say, okay, who has the advantage in this matchup and that matchup, I think even before yesterday's news broke about Jagashaw getting hurt, you would have said A&M has the advantage with its defensive line against Notre Dame's offensive line. Well, that advantage would appear to have just gotten even more decided. The deal is, though, you've got to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
And
so you cannot copy and paste one line of thinking with another program. But Mike Denbrook was the offensive coordinator at LSU. Mm-hmm. And he had a special trio on offense, right? Special. 2 first-round picks at wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He had, obviously, Jaden Daniels at quarterback who won the Heisman Trophy. That team could throw it long, and it was beautiful to watch. A&M had success with a different defensive coordinator for 3 quarters of that game.
Yeah.
2.5 quarters, we'll call it. All right? I only say that to say I don't believe, I could be wrong, Notre Dame has those wide receivers.
They don't have those receivers.
I like Riley Leonard a lot. He might destroy teams this year, and he might be able to run and throw. Apparently, his arm is a lot better than Mike Denbrook thought. That's what I think who told us that, Adam Rittenberg yesterday. All that being said, I don't think that's the LSU offense in Notre Dame clothing.
No, it's not. Well, first of all, where's another area where LSU was really good last year? Offensive tackle. They got 2 of the best offensive.
Yeah, this year they're going to be great.
They might have the best pair of offensive tackles in the country.
Yep.
As a group, as a pair, as a combination. They don't have that at Notre Dame. They don't have first-round draft choices at receiver. In fact, their leading receiver in terms of yards per catch was a guy that joined the team mid-season off the lacrosse team.
That's right.
Like Jason or Jaden Justin Faison. And now they got Tyler Buckner, the former quarterback, who went back to play lacrosse, who's back as a receiver. And they got the kid from Westlake, Jaden Greathouse. And they brought in a guy, I think, from FIU. So they've been
They're trying to fix us, yeah.
But let's not the people up in South Bend aren't going to tell you, yeah, but these guys are going to be just like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. They're not.
No, and now maybe they will be that good. Maybe it's the system.
Well,
but
here's the other side of that coin.
The secondary is going to be better at A&M?
Well, I'm going to say Notre Dame plays defense too.
They do play defense.
And their defensive line.
And LSU doesn't play defense.
Right. So there's both sides. Their defensive line is much better than what you saw against.
But what good defenses did A&M play against last season?
Good ones?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought Alabama had a good defense.
And Max, was it Max that game? Yeah, Max was able to move the ball.
Had some, yeah. I thought Alabama had. No.
They didn't really take on great defenses last year, did they?
I mean, they weren't incompetent.
Right. But the offense was better last year. There's no doubt it was better. It's not where we want it to be, but it was significantly better.
It made strides. It sure did. And I think they're going to make even more strides this year. So I guess what I'm getting at is there are those that are going to just look at Notre Dame being ranked 7th in the coaches poll and think it's a lost cause. And it's not. That's going to be a game, and A&M definitely has a better than a puncher's chance to win that game. And now that key injury, enhances A&M's possibilities.
We'll do way more of this game week, right?
Yes.
All right, when we go live. Little hint there. But if you would say advantage, right? O-line. Where does A&M have the advantage? Defensive line.
Defensive line.
Okay. I'm going to say quarterback to have the advantage. It could be close. Maybe it's. I'm going to say A&M has the advantage at quarterback.
Well, but the deal is the quarterbacks don't play against each other.
No, but okay. Let's go one against Notre Dame's defense. Excellent.
Yeah.
Typically, A&M I think is going to be very strong on the defensive line. I feel better about our linebackers, especially after hearing Billy talk yesterday, and I definitely feel better about the secondary.
I think what you're going to look at with when we get to that point, all the things where you're going to give A&M the advantage, you're going to give Notre Dame the advantage too. They're the same team. They both have quarterbacks have been coached by Mike Elko that are coming back from injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so similar, it's scary. Where A&M might be, and this is a huge might be better at running back than
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame might be. I don't know. And with all the A&M's issues in the line, they're probably a little better, or they're probably better than Notre Dame now. And then A&M is probably better at linebacker.
And they're better at defensive line?
Notre Dame's really good in the defensive line. That might be one of those you're saying, hey, we're talking about who's 1A and who's 1 and who's 1A.
Well, the reason I say it like that is, again, we haven't seen Nick Gordon in the SEC.
Right.
But I've seen these guys in the SEC. And Notre Dame doesn't play an SEC schedule.
No, but Howard Cross is going to be
he's
going to be a high draft pick.
All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back with 24 in 24. Right now, if you've got pain from arthritis, it sucks. It's just awful. If you've got bone-on-bone constant pain, it's going to take you away from doing the things that you love to do, whatever it may be. Play golf, jump rope, climb trees, whatever it could be. There are effective ways to deal with that pain that don't require you to go under the knife, don't require medication. It's QC Kinetics. They have cellular therapies that get you lasting relief. They are the place to go to make you feel better quickly. QC Kinetics is using cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move once again. So if you have chronic joint pain, if you've got arthritis pain, or if you have an injury, you need to know that steroids are not your top answer. Surgery and pain pills are not the way to go. You no longer have to do those options. You have a different option, and that is QC Kinetics, with the regenerative medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. That's the best part of it. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are ready to help you get your life back once again with regenerative, restorative cellular treatments for your achy joints. This is the future of medicine, and it's right now. Call them for a free consultation right now. 979-452-6000, QC Kinetics. 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. Hey, I'm just checking my phone as we come back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. You know it's the go hour, right?
I do know that. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. What if I change the name? Would you still come?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As long as the check kept cashing.
They pay you to do this, to talk sports?
Well, can you believe it?
They pay us to talk sports? God, no wonder people hate us. They pay you to do that?
Yeah.
To talk about, like, football and superhero movies?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently about, my retirement age is getting close. In fact, I can take Social Security now.
Man,
if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And they said, let's talk about retirement when that comes. And they said, well, what are you going to do when you retire? I said, I don't know, probably watch a lot of Aggie sports and talk about Aggie sports.
Probably be a frequent guest on every show in town, probably.
Probably do the same thing I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Just not getting paid for it.
All right. Shall we do a little 24 and 24?
We should.
All right, here we go. This is 24 in 24 brought to you by FBS Appliance, committed to delivering an exceptional experience from start to finish. You can trust them to provide unparalleled service and support every step of the way because FBS Appliance is your trusted appliance store. Visit any of their 8 showrooms across Texas and find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. And number 14, OB, is
Armaj Reed Adams, all 3 of them.
So here's the truth. I've only seen limited plays of his on YouTube, right?
Me too. I did not watch a lot of Kansas football.
But hey, they have a chance to go to the playoffs apparently yesterday.
And they were pretty good last year, were they not?
Uh-huh.
And I did see one play in particular where they lined him up, I think, tight end, or maybe they had an unbalanced line, right? Yep. And he goes in motion because, he's that nimble. And at the snap, he's coming in motion, and he just unloads on. I can't remember if it was an outside linebacker. Just knocks him out of the frame, and they run over there. And so he's a guy that can bring a big impact.
He's a name that you hear other players bring up often, right? Like to me, that's sometimes like my gauge of where players stand is when players talk about him and how they talk about him. Sometimes they forget people, right? But everybody has brought him up about Armaj. Like they bring him up often.
Yeah, it looks like I'm getting the feeling. I should say, I'm going to say looks like. I haven't seen them line up in any certain depth chart yet, but I'm getting the feeling that this guy's going to be the starter at right guard.
Yeah,
you feel that way?
I feel that way.
Yeah. Again, he played.
Didn't Chase basically allude to yesterday? He plays a lot more on the left.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. So I'm thinking, that we're getting a feel of what I think that offensive line is going to be. I think it's going to be Armaj Reed Adams at right guard next to Reuben Fothery. This is what I'm guessing. We don't know that officially. This is Olin Buchanan speculating.
The speculator. I'm going to read you some stats from 2023. He played 12 games, 2 sacks allowed on 263 rushing attempts. A discrepancy with the above because of screens not counting as true pass rushing snaps, according to this note. 10 pressures allowed, 3.8 pressure rate, pretty solid. 9 penalties, 3 of them in the bowl game against UNLV when there were 27 total flags called and he was playing right tackle in that game instead of his better position, offensive guard. Really good analysis, whoever wrote that, Dawson or whoever. Good stuff there. I did not know that.
I didn't either. But apparently there's a lot of that goes around. It's harder to find, I think, tackles than it is guards. And so you find a lot of guards. You say who's the most athletic guys and put them out at tackle and see how they do.
Right.
A&M did that last year. But here's a guy that apparently, because, again, I haven't studied him. Not a big guy fan of Kansas football.
Right.
But here's a guy that was asked to play a little bit out of position. He's coming to A&M, and he's going to be able to play the position where he's supposedly best.
So here's a note from Matthew Dawson. As you know, the way we break down these rankings, we're not going to be a dictator here. We're all part of it, right? You get 25, I get 25, Billy gets 25, and the subscribers get 25% of the vote, right?
That's 100%.
That 25 times 4, carry the 2, minus 7, add. Yes, you're right. So here's a note from Matthew Dawson. Armaj is a player that you, Billy, and OB are significantly higher on than the fans. He only finished 22nd in the fan vote.
Okay.
And that's to be expected because you guys haven't seen him play. Not saying that we have, but I think we're using some context clues, some conversations across the street to help formulate our ideas and, our eyes.
And yeah, that one play I saw, and that was only one play, but really stood out in my mind. The way he just blew up some poor guy on the edge. It's Kansas. If you can, I want to start there with a guy that has that much power behind him. He's from, I think he played his senior year at DeSoto High School. DeSoto's been pretty good at Texas A&M, so that's always a plus. But look. If nothing else, here's a guy that's coming in at guard, and if he wasn't here last year, which he wasn't, but comes in and beats out guys who were.
Yep.
That's another indicator to me. The offensive line's gotten better.
Yeah. And here's the thing: if I just said to you out loud, you got some new players and a new O-line coach, do you automatically feel better?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Did I see Adazio got hired? I saw that. I think I saw him getting hired.
Yeah,
on
he's
TV,
he's an
right?
ESPN analyst now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He must. Is he going to be able to go on ESPN? They're going to have to do a lot of bleeps. Bleep, bleep. Can Adazio complete a sentence without dropping an F-bomb? I don't know. I haven't.
Are there people in this office that could be about the same commentary?
Yeah, maybe we should hire Adazio.
All right. All right. Let's hit a break. When we come back, more a little bit on the offensive line, because I do want to hear from Chase Basantis on that move to guard, because it kind of fits in with us talking about Armaj Reed Adams. We'll do that here on the other side. Right now, we're talking about Rollo Insurance. The difference is real. They are the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. They're an independent insurance company built on educating you on exactly what you're paying for, doing the shopping for you so that you can accomplish all of your insurance goals. Here's a couple things about them. They're all over the place, right? They've got 53 offices in Texas. Their headquarters right here in College Station on Highway 6, which means you see them all over the place. If you go to events, you go to the grocery store, sporting events, they're going to be there. Jason Jackson, the whole crew. They've got offices in Houston, Dallas, Tyler, Austin, San Antonio, and in West Texas, of course. And you can find them all around this country as well. I know they got offices in Utah. They got it all over the place. If you're a homeowner, car owner, farmer, ranchers, hobby farmers, they have the insurance for you. And let's not forget their priorities. It is God, family, and country. Check out the website, RolloInsurance.com. That is RolloInsurance.com, 888-44-ROLLO, or RolloInsurance.com, 888-44-ROLLO.
his eyes get washed away. You like Glenn Campbell?
No.
You know this song?
Yeah, I know this song. I don't dislike him. Let me rephrase.
The late great.
He's great.
He's like a Rhinestone Stone cowboy.
I don't think I've ever on Spotify going, I'm gonna put some Glenn Campbell on. I should, but I haven't. But I'll change.
He was a hell of a guitar player, actually.
Guy could play some basketball too. I just made that up. TexAgs Radio.
Glenn Rice could.
That
I don't know about
Michigan.
Glenn Campbell. Yeah.
Miami Heat.
Is that
Houston Rockets.
I played with the Rockets.
He did.
Yeah, I remember in Michigan. Then I lose track.
Yeah. Ramel Robinson.
I do remember him, point guard. Yeah, when they won the national championship.
That's right. It is the Go Hour presented. See, I don't remember who played for the Texans last year, but I can tell you about 1988 Michigan. Is that right? Around there?
Yeah, I'm around there because I was living in Tyler at the time.
Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Can we hear from Chase Basantis?
Let's do. I like this kid
because he's going to tell us about the move from tackle to guard. Here he is.
How's that going for you? And I understand that. Is it true that may be more? You may be more comfortable there, and so what?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's been good. I've gained some weight, gained about 10, 15 pounds, 8 pounds of muscle. So it's been real good, and I feel more comfortable being with the heavy guys.
You know, why? I mean, why do you feel more comfortable at guard? Is it just because, like you said, you're going against heavier guys?
Yeah. I've always feel like I've been stronger in the run game, so that's helped as well. Yes, sir. And with Coach Christian has been great too.
All right. You look like you have a thought.
No, just, I kind of get the feeling, right, that A&M wants to run the football this year, even maybe more so than last year. And, of course, last year, A&M, quite frankly, didn't run the ball that well.
Yeah.
I think they're 11th in the nation, the SEC, and 91st in the nation, I believe, in rushing offense.
Yep.
I got the feeling that they want to run the ball more this year and hopefully more successfully, and I think that's going to – in my opinion, I don't know if this is just obvious or if it's universally shared or disagreed with, but a good running game starts with your interior line.
Yep.
The guards pull, the guards get, they run block more so than I think they're more like your tackles are so important in pass protection. That's where the emphasis is. Not that the inside guys aren't. So not like the tackles aren't important in run blocking, but I think it just kind of starts at the interior line, it seems to me.
We went a whole hour and I didn't bring it up, but I should probably bring it up. It's not a story, but just to remind everybody, Texas A&M yesterday in the coaches poll, preseason coaches poll, number 20.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like the coaches recognize the talent and the alcoholics.
Yeah, but they're not putting them too high to where there's still a little stealth factor. I like that stealth factor.
OB, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
When we come back on TexAgs Radio, we're going to do a little SEC football talk. Colby Newton wrote a book about the SEC, the origins, how it became the most dominant league. We'll talk to him on the other side, find out some just history about the SEC and maybe even some current events going on in the SEC. It is TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We'll be back in 2 and 2. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. So I've been seeing social media reacting to a new book that's been out for a little bit, and it's kind of cool because it takes you back to the origins of the SEC. The book is called How a Regional League Became a National Champion, and let's talk to the author of the book, Colby Newton. Colby, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you very much. He's on the Boss Firearms Hotline. So let's kind of talk about how the origin of the book came together. Why did you decide to make this your second book?
Yeah, I was looking at the national championships that the SEC had won, and I was thinking, it hasn't always been that way, where the SEC is just, it's a foregone conclusion that the league would have a national champion. And so when I looked at the total national champions from like 1960-ish to about 1990, those 30 years versus 1990 to present day, the number of SEC champions, SEC teams that won the national championship doubled. Heisman Trophy winners doubled. NFL draft picks doubled. Like, what happened? Was there a story there that I could tell that looked at the foundational pieces that were built in the early days of the SEC that helped it propel to become the league that it is today, that we all know?
So what do you find, what are some of the moments that you said, all right, this is what caused the explosion? If there's 3 or 4 different ones you can point at.
The 3 big ones that I feel like jumped out, and it's really the bulk of the book, happened in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s with SEC expansion when they grabbed Arkansas and South Carolina. And then they took that and created the very first SEC championship game, the first conference championship game that any league had ever done. That was early 90s. And then the mid 90s, they signed their deal with CBS, and it became the very first league to have a national broadcast on an over-the-air network. Those 3 things are really what I think helped build a foundation to then in the early 2000s have it be a situation where every single year the SEC is basically winning a national championship.
So do you have ties to the SEC? Obviously, I see the Utah football behind you, but is it because it became this national brand and this national obsession?
That's my tie to it. Yep. Grew up in Salt Lake City, and as a teenager, it became appointment television for me to sit down in front of the TV and listen to Vern Lundquist call that SEC game on CBS. And ended up in the bowl game industry for about 15 years and had the opportunity to stand on the sidelines for a number of Sugar Bowls and national championship games. And then seeing it in person, it's unlike anything anybody can understand if you haven't been able to do that in person. And so always been a huge fan of the SEC.
Colby, what about the obsession part of it for fans? Is that when the national championship started, or you can go back to the beginning days and it was an obsession in Alabama and all these other markets?
Yeah, I think it always has been. And I think that was kind of the secret ingredient that the SEC had going all the way back to even the 1930s, where the SEC was the very first league to embrace putting games on the radio. Most of the teams and leagues across the country didn't want to put their games on the radio because they feared it would hurt the attendance and that would impact finances. But the SEC quickly learned that by putting games on radio, it built the passion, it built the fan base, and only helped the teams and the leagues earn the money and build that fervent fan base. So really, I think that's the secret ingredient for the SEC that you don't really quite understand until you dive into it and you go to games and see what it's like in the South.
Let's go a little bit deeper into the CBS contract, because that is where, everybody, if you're changing the channels back then when you didn't have a guide, you would change the channels, right? You would stay there, and football's America's love, right? So, and they had the prime viewing experience.
Yeah, that was a huge part of the foundation that we just talked about. And it was a fascinating thing to look back on, because now it just seems like, oh, well, of course, what a great decision. You put the SEC on, everybody's going to love it. But not a lot of people thought it was a smart deal at the time. ABC at the time was the other major player in broadcasting college football. They had a regional model, meaning if you were in the Midwest, you would see a Big Ten game. If you lived in the West, like I did, you would see a Pac-10 at the time game. You didn't get a chance to see teams from other parts of the country. And the SEC on CBS was the very first league to do that. there were executives at ABC that went on the record at the time that said, this will never work. Nobody's going to care about Tennessee playing Georgia that lives in Colorado. And now we look back on that and we think, well, how wrong could you have been? But it was the situation at the time that CBS took a little bit of a risk. They actually lost in the ratings the first year or two under that deal. CBS had just lost the rights to the NFL. So they were all in on making sure that this partnership with the SEC worked. And I think that's what, you combine that with, at the time, you got Steve Spurrier, you got Peyton Manning. So you had some personalities that lent to the broadcast being something that captivated the nation.
Isn't it interesting, too, because we're having this conversation about the CBS impact today. And today, the Big Ten is going to CBS, and ABC, like, oh, hey, we made a mistake. The whole Disney family is on to the SEC.
Yeah, now it's flipped, right? Like you said, full circle, and now every single SEC game is going to be on that ESPN, ABC family of networks. And that was actually another reason why I thought I want to write the book. I was bummed that it's leaving CBS. The music, the announcers, all of it. It was an awesome era, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens going forward as you compare what the SEC is doing and what the Big Ten is doing, both with broadcast partners and with expansion and what they're doing with their leagues.
Colby Newton with us here on TexAgs Radio. Let's talk about the personalities of the SEC, right? Like, throughout history, we have some of the most interesting characteristics, traits, and leaders that we've ever seen in sports.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Too much to really even cover in an entire hour-long program, or 3 hours. Steve Spurrier, one that I mentioned already, is quite the character, and there were a bunch of really fun stories that we're able to kind of dig up about him and what he did. He was such a huge part of the league, and really for Florida in general. They weren't very good before Spurrier became a player there. They were really good when he was there. He won a Heisman Trophy. He leaves as a player. They're not very good until he comes back. And so he was one of the great personalities. Bear Bryant is someone that we talk about a lot in the book. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer. There's so many amazing players too. When you talk about Herschel Walker, who was probably my very first player that I knew as a little kid. He was the first football player that I knew about. Bo Jackson, like I said, Peyton Manning, the entire Manning family, Archie Manning. There's so many.
So there's one thing to have the national obsession with the SEC. There's another thing for it to match the victories on the field, and that's what the SEC has done. So how has that part of it kind of played out? Because, yeah, everybody's watching. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's winning.
Yeah, and I think a good point to talk about with that, because you're right. Just because you have passion doesn't mean you're going to translate onto the field in victories. And for so many years in the SEC, it was Alabama and Bear Bryant, and you had other periods of greatness. Ole Miss with Johnny Vaught was great in the 50s. Tennessee and Robert Neyland was great in the 30s and 40s, but really it was Alabama. And I think that the turning point for me in what we talk about in the book is Nick Saban and LSU. And when he went to LSU and was able to win a national championship at LSU and really, for the first time in 50 years, turn that program into a national player, from then on out, that's early 2000s, you had not just one team at the top, which a lot of other leagues have, and I would argue the Big Ten is still that way to this day. You have depth. And that's where that passion of the fan bases turned into victories on the field, because they already had the fans, they already had the money. Now they're getting the players, the recruiting, the facilities, the depth of the league. To now Auburn's winning national championships. You've got Georgia now winning national championships again, and then you've got these other teams that are really, really good and winning in the recruiting wars. Texas A&M is another one that, since they've been in the league, have really risen to what the SEC has built as a foundation.
Colby, how did integration of rosters really change the trajectory as well?
You're talking about African Americans
in
the 60s and 70s. Yeah, that was a huge part of it, and we talk about that in great detail. As you can imagine, with it being in the South, teams in the SEC were last to the party on that, and it was sobering to go back and read some of the stories and learn about what some of these young men had to deal with as they became the very first African Americans to play against an SEC team, to score a touchdown in the SEC, and then to finally break the color barrier with Nate Northington at University of Kentucky to be the very first African-American to play in the SEC. And that obviously changed a lot of things at that point. And by the time you get into the 70s and 80s, that was a huge part of finally pushing the league forward, decades behind what it should have been and what other leagues were.
Two-part question for you, Colby. Is the Big Ten catching up? And how much staying power does the SEC have in this new world of college football?
Yeah, those are great questions. And everybody wants to focus on the money, especially when you talk about what they're distributing to each member of the league. And the Big Ten, are they catching up? I don't think so. And, we talked about it a minute ago. The money's great, but does it translate to not only, in my mind, victories on the field and contention for national championships, but depth? Are there going to be multiple teams and schools that can compete? What does it look like in the future? That's going to be such a fascinating thing to watch over the next 10 years because there's such a different philosophy. The SEC, going back to when they grabbed South Carolina and Arkansas, and then Texas A&M and Mizzou, and now what they've done with Texas and Oklahoma, have really stayed, I feel like, true to their roots. The Big Ten is not. The Big Ten now, we're going to have UCLA playing Rutgers, and it's a conference game. Is that going to be something that continues to propel the Big Ten towards national championships? I don't think that it will, but it's going to be really fascinating to watch over the next 10 years what happens with these two leagues.
So follow up to that, what do you think about this new SEC with the additions, with the size, and the potential additions here in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think it's great. And especially as I look back and did research for the book to see, what Texas, Oklahoma, even Texas A&M almost joined the league in the late 80s. And you've got some quotes in the book from the commissioner at the time, Harvey Schiller, who came in right before Roy Kramer and really started greasing the wheels for expansion. And they wanted those teams then because they matched with facilities, they matched with passion, and they matched with wins. So, having been to the Texas State Fair and having been to a Texas-Oklahoma game, that environment, that fits the SEC. And it fits what I have seen with my own eyes at these games that I've been to. So I think that as long as the SEC stays true to that, we hear so much about conference expansion with Florida State and Clemson and all that, and who knows what's going to happen. But I think as long as the league stays true to what they've done in the past, they're going to be just fine.
Colby, I know you have the historical perspective, but are you keeping up with what the teams look like now and the future of this season, 2024?
Yeah, huge college football fan. So very excited about it and excited to see what this season brings. 12-team playoff. What does that look like? How many teams does the SEC get? How many teams does the Big Ten get? And then what happens with the other leagues, ACC and Big 12? Very interesting to see what this looks like. You got home playoff games. I mean, a playoff game in SEC stadiums, that gets me excited even just thinking about that. So excited to see what this season brings. And are we going to have some new blood? Does this open up, NIL, right? Does this open up, make it more? There's more parity. I think that it does. It's funny that people kind of start to talk about parity in college football. There's never really been the opportunity for teams to break through, and I think that finally is the case now. So it's going to be a fun season.
So let me ask you about a couple programs. A&M, obviously, this is an A&M show. Mike Elko taking over. Any thoughts of what you saw him do at Duke and how that could translate at a place that he knows very well?
I think he's going to do a tremendous job, and I think what he did at Duke speaks volumes for that. He seems like, to me, maybe a little bit of an outsider. He seems like the right fit in College Station for Texas A&M. Finally, right? It's been a bumpy road here and there over the last few years, and I think that, again, my perspective from an outsider, it just feels right. And I hope that there's nothing better than a strong top 10, top 5 Texas A&M team. That's good for the SEC. That's great for college football. And I hope that he's able to accomplish everything that he wants to do there and the fans and the players want.
Colby, you said something earlier that I think kind of fits for today. When you talked about Nick Saban winning at LSU, that staying power from that 1 year, we are still seeing now. Yes, they've had some good coaches. Obviously, Les had his issues, but he won. Ed won. And a lot of people expect Brian Kelly to win. How about LSU from that moment on to where they are now?
It completely changed everything. And there's a quote from the president of the school at the time when they hired Nick Saban. Saban was not their first choice. He wasn't their second choice. His agent had to convince LSU to even give him an interview. And from that point on, he blew them away. So there's a quote from the president saying, people still think it's 1957 around here when Billy Cannon is scoring touchdowns and winning the Heisman Trophy. So that's 50 years. And like you said, from really about 2000 on, LSU we see him as a national power. They weren't always that way. And I think Kelly, what he's doing there, it's going to be, I mean, how fascinating it would be if he wins a national championship. He'd be the fourth coach in 25 years to win at that same school, which is very unique. So another thing similar to Texas A&M, college football needs LSU to be good. Death Valley is an incredible place. I've been to that stadium. It's unreal. And so it's going to be fun to see what Kelly does this year.
Colby, what about Greg Sankey in your research? What'd you find out about him, about his leadership style, the growth of the league under his watch?
Yeah, I'll actually broaden that question a bit. The SEC is not where it's at without the leadership of the commissioners, and that really started with Roy Kramer. And you even go back a little bit, I mentioned Harvey Schiller, but yeah, Greg Sankey has picked up right where the other guys have left off and has a clear vision and isn't afraid to stick to that vision, maybe even sometimes in the face of external pressure. The SEC was the league behind the BCS. Roy Kramer was tabulating the results on his kitchen table every Sunday. They were the league behind the 14 playoff, and they're really the league behind the 12-team playoff. And so I think Sankey and what he has been able to do for the league is exactly what the league needs. And that's why you asked me that question earlier about the Big Ten versus the SEC. The SEC is going to be just great, and a lot of that is because of Greg Sankey.
Let me ask you this about that. Do you see a world where there is no Big Ten and an SEC, that is just one big league, and maybe it's, one side is the Big Ten, but like maybe Sankey's running the whole thing?
Yeah, that's talked about a lot. I don't see that for a long time, and maybe that's just because I was so deep in the weeds of this historical research and have seen what it's been like for literally the last 100 years when the SEC broke off from a league of 23 back in 1932-33 and created their own league. I just think there's so much cultural and philosophical differences between those two leagues. It would take a boatload of money from TV networks, and maybe that's only 10 years away, but I can't see it happening before that point where it's more of an NFL-style league like what you're talking about.
Colby, what's the next book? Are you planning the next book already, or are you going to chill out with this one for a little bit?
Yeah, I got a lot of ideas, and don't know yet. Don't know. Just really excited about talking about this book. I think if you're a college football fan in general, if you love the SEC, or if you're somebody like me that just kind of loves history and learning about things that happened in the past, you'll love this book. So, ask me that in a few months. I'll have a better answer.
It is SEC Football, How a Regional League Became a National Champion. Where can people get the book?
You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Barnes & Noble. You can hit your independent local bookstores there in the South, and they should have copies of it or be able to get you a copy.
Colby, I appreciate your time, man. I hope to do it again.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. SEC Football, How a Regional League Became a National Champion. All right, we'll kind of digest that on the other side. We'll also do some SEC storylines here on TexAgs Radio. Right now, though, how about your car wash tradition with the friendliest staff and a personal touch? That is Aggieland Express. They've got those two locations. You know about the original, William D. Fitch behind the Shipleys in South College Station. You also have the newest location, 2528 Texas Avenue South in College Station, across the street from Planet Fitness. So both have the varying car wash options that you want, right? You've got the free vacuums, the towels for use, unlimited monthly memberships starting as low as $19.95. But the newest location's got the full service wash, which is a full service option. Their team's going to take care of cleaning, drying, vacuuming, Armor All, interior, all under a completely covered area, so that your car stays cool while they make it sparkle and shine. And we're going to give, for a limited time, a special deal. They're inviting you to try out that full-service option for half price. It's normally $40, but you can get it for $20 off if you tell them that I sent you by. And I'm going to give a free one out right now. The first caller to 979-693-1150, you're going to get yourself a free car wash at the new location on Texas Avenue, a $40 value. Give us a call right now, 979-693-1150. It is Aggieland Express Car Wash. Check it out. All right, we are back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio, and we're going to go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn is there. Caitlin, I know we got some SEC storylines to hit, but also some text messages.
Yes, which would you like to start with, David?
I'm going to let you decide.
Let's
Why
start.
did I snap so loud? Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was a loud snap. Strong snap.
I think I broke my thumb doing that.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, good.
I'm good.
Let's start with the Olympics because I've already got that over here. But we found some interesting stats. Not very surprising, but I think interesting. There's 319 athletes, coaches, and other officials with ties to current SEC schools participating in the Olympics right now. The SEC is one of only 3 conferences in the nation that has 100% school representation in this Olympics. Texas is in 4th, Florida in 6th, Kentucky in 9th are all in the top 10 collegiate contributors to the USA's Olympic roster. A total of 139 athletes with ties to the SEC compete in track and field, 82 in swimming and diving, and 22 in basketball. In total, 13 sports will have athletes from the SEC institution with 78 countries represented. I thought that was pretty interesting. 85 athletes represent the United States. Jamaica has 23, and Canada with 21 athletes.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Lots and lots of representation.
You know, when people say interesting, either they find it really interesting or they don't know how to like move to the next stop. So they go, interesting.
I'm a little of both.
Yeah, I think I am too.
A little of both.
Look, I'm pumped to see, like, this is going to sound like I'm lying. I haven't watched the second of the Olympics. But
I was going to ask you that.
I haven't. Like, I wish I just... But I keep up with it, if that makes sense. Like, I just haven't sat down. I'm like, okay, let me go watch, pole vaulting. I haven't done that, but I'm super interested. I need to watch it. Like, I know, I take that back. I watched a little bit of Simone Biles the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched basketball, and I'm a huge basketball junkie. I haven't watched Team USA play. I don't know why. I think the timing of it, and I suck at watching stuff on replay.
Yeah.
I just can't. Like, a lot of this, not all of it, but a lot of the sports are happening at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'll just Google it. I'll be fine.
It's hard to go back.
I'll catch up. But
what is your favorite Olympic sport, David, to watch?
Probably basketball.
Basketball.
And I like soccer. I don't get into gymnastics until I watch it, right? Like I don't like my kids love to watch, my daughters love to watch gymnastics. But I'm not interested until they start watching it. And then it's kind of like, if Survivor's on, which I've never watched in my life, by the way. But you kind of walk by, and you're like, you kind of find yourself intrigued by it, and you sit down, like,
sit down and
interesting.
watch.
Oh,
Agree.
That's kind of how I am. But for sure basketball, for sure soccer, whatever. I like seeing the best. I like the swimming. I do like the swimming. I love it. So track and field is great to watch. I know we have a lot of Aggies participating in track and field. Freddie Curley over the weekend was awesome.
We do. Moving on to some text. David in Temple sent a text to you, David. Said, David, you're doing great interviews to the show every week. You ask great questions today. Colby had smooth and tremendous answers. Pretty good job, my man. Figure out how to bring him back during season on Monday. Weekly results from our friend Dave in Temple.
Dave in Temple, I appreciate you, sir. Saw you at the PKO. It was cool to hang out. I'm going to read this text. C. Fondren 26. I'm curious to get your thoughts on Arkansas this season. My buddy and some media outlets seem really high on them. I'm not high on them at all. I think they're going to win 5 or 6 games. But after watching some of their fall camp clips, I'm not so sure. It looks like they have some holes that might be problematic. What do you think? Are they overrated, or do they have potential to surprise us? Nick, if you can pull up their schedule, I don't have it in front of me. I don't think they're going to be any good. I'm one of those for A&M as well. You got to prove it for me to believe it. And if KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders are gone, you're not going to be as good. I know they're excited about Taylon Green, and he might be the next version of him. I know that Sam Pittman is coaching for his job. I don't know if he gets out of October to the 19th. UAPB, I should say, win at Oklahoma State. Toss up. I usually take the SEC team. Let's just say for this conversation they win. UAB, they win 3-0. At Auburn, they lose. Okay, they're 3-1 at that point. A&M, that's a loss. That's two. I'm sorry, yeah. A&M dominates that series. Tennessee, that's a loss. That's 3 in a row. LSU, that's a loss. That's 4 in a row. They're going to lose 4 in a row. He'll be fired by then. That's my opinion of Arkansas. Now, could they surprise us? Of course. If everybody thinks they suck and they win, they're going to surprise us. I do not expect them to be good. I don't think Sam Pittman, who I like a lot, by the way, makes it out. They won 4 games last year. Would it be realistic to see a 6-6 record this year? Sure, I think that's possible, and that would be a step in the right direction. But I think 6-6 after, now 3 straight bad seasons gets you fired. They won 9 in 2021. So, no, I don't think they are going to. And according to Matthew Dawson, our good friend, Arkansas is 109th in returning production with a win total of 4.5. So wherever you heard that, I think they must be homers. I even talked to a couple of insiders when we were at SEC Media Days on the show. Brian Neighbors, by the way, he said to us that no, he does not expect them to be that good. Now, could he see a 6 or 7 win team? Sure. But no, I don't believe that they're going to be anything beyond that. All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back. We're going to talk to Coach Alan Weddell here on TexAgs Radio. Get his thoughts. He was obviously a former defensive coordinator. He also coached linebackers here at Texas A&M. He went to Texas, but he loves the Aggies. He's an interesting case study. So we'll talk about that on the other side. 979-693-1150. Right now we're talking FBS Appliance. So they got a great team of experts there at FBS. They want to help you find the appliances that make your house a home. And they do that multiple different ways. One of the ways they do that is by carrying all the top brands. You have a bunch to choose from. But they also have an expert installers and a great sales staff. They've been taking care of Texas since 1988, and they want to have their installers guide you through your purchase because FBS Appliance is your trusted appliance store. They've got 8 great showrooms across Texas. You can find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. Their services are not just sales. They do have an expert sales staff, but also an expert installation staff as well. They're going to make sure that they put the appliances in the right area. They oftentimes do a video before you get there. They'll have you with your iPhone or whatever phone you have, kind of show them the path that they have to take, and they'll have a plan for when they do deliver those appliances. Again, they have 8 showrooms across Texas. Find them online, factorybuilderstores.com. Hello, everybody. Awkward silence to start the segment. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. So Matthew Dawson, trying to be our boss, came in here. He's like, dude, you haven't talked about something. So before we go to the Boss Firearms hotline, let's go to Caitlin's horn there at the Angry Elephant Youth and Social Center. What's the storyline that we haven't touched on yet?
I know. I can't even believe we haven't brought it up yet, but we have a new 12th man for our 2024 season. Really don't want to butcher this name. Nana Bodiawusu. Matthew will have
That
to
was
tell
really
me.
good.
Okay,
Holy smokes.
I'm not going to lie. I practiced that last night a couple of times.
Did you?
I did. Yes, but he was announced as our 12th man for the 2024 season. In the video I saw on Twitter, it seemed like Elko was saying that the vote was pretty unanimous. This Arlington Martin product played in 4 games last season. New Mexico, Miami, Abilene Christian, and Oklahoma State was also a member of the 12th man kickoff team that received the Brotherhood Impact Award at the annual banquet after the 2023 campaign.
Good stuff there. Thank you very much, Caitlin. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir.
More on that throughout the show. Let's go to the Boss Firearms hotline. Coach Alan Weddell joining us here on TexAgs Radio, former defensive coordinator, linebackers coach at A&M. Coach Weddell, how you been, my friend?
Doing good. How are you going to put all that name on the back of a jersey? How's that going to work?
How's a
Look,
broadcaster
man,
like myself going to say it?
Exactly. That's a mouthful. That's good. Hope he plays as well as his name is. How about that?
So rumor has it I may get to see you in studio from time to time this fall.
Yes. I am a totally 100% retired person now. So I'm just going to be enjoying life, and I'll be up in College Station every Tuesday and Wednesday, and then any weekends if there's an athletic event, I've got an apartment up there part-time to stay in. So, I'm a part-time College Station resident now, will be. So looking forward to that.
Coach Weddell, you and I sometimes speak at the KBTX hit that we do on Saturdays, and we kind of go from this optimistic point of view to what the heck is going on with this football team, and now we have a completely different regime, right? So just from a coaching perspective, a defensive mindset that you have, your thoughts on Coach Elko taking over?
Well, I'm excited about it, and I guess it's a prejudice on my side, but last time we had a defensive-minded coach was R.C. Slocum. We won a championship. So I think there's a mindset, definitely a mindset different between a defensive coach and an offensive coach. So I think that's going to be a positive. In the day of the portal and the day of NIL, your chemistry means so much in the locker room, and your roster changes up so much. I mean, there's no need to really talk names except maybe your quarterback and your 5 stars that have shown last year until you get out in the field the first day, because you have so many new faces. I mean, you had a lot of new faces there in the spring, and they were learning the system. They've had all summer now to get it down. You've got some transfers in from after spring training. It's a totally, you truly need a roster to tell what's going on. And it'll be a different team chemistry-wise, a different team on the field, as it is everywhere. I mean, you don't have a monopoly. Everybody's got the portal. Everybody's got good players now. So it's a different time in college football, but it's an exciting time because everybody's undefeated. Everybody has high hopes. Everybody is planning on playing real well and going and winning the big ball game. And we'll see how the ups and downs go in this conference and this season. But I'm excited about Aggie football this year. I think the schedule's as good as you can possibly get in the Southeast Conference, especially the home schedule. And I think we need to make the most of it and ride it out. Have some fun.
Coach Weddell, I think two things can be true. That DJ Durkin had a nice run here, especially last year. The defense was good. Yet it was kind of a frustrating defense at times, at least in my eyes, when you have that much talent on the defensive line and constantly on a 3-man front. Obviously, the secondary, there was major issues there. That could have been a personnel issue, could have been schematically. When you see that and what you remember from Coach Elko here, what kind of differences defensively do you think we'll see?
Well, I think that Elko had a big – we're good. I'm outside. I think Elko's got a bigger package. I think he's got more bullets in his gun from what I saw. And I really think he'll be able to get that kind of stuff in. So I think that's one of it. It's knowing his scheme when he was first here before, the success that he had and the talent he had. I think they've addressed the secondary problems. I really do. In our defensive line, if there's a better one in the nation, I don't want to be the running back running against the offensive line having to block it. So pretty excited about the defense next year. I think that's going to be the strength, actually.
Alan Weddell with us here on TexAgs Radio. Alan, let's talk a little bit about the linebackers, a position you know well. Edgerrin Cooper's now in the NFL.
Yeah.
They're certainly going to miss him. Torian York took a huge leap last year, became captain of this year's defense. Do you think that the linebacker core with the new names that have come around could be a plus as well?
I think York's a stud. I think he's as good as they've had around here in 10 years. He's got tremendous instincts. That's what you just can't coach in linebacker. He can run. He'll hit you. He's a great kid. He works hard. He checks every box. He's young. That's the whole deal. He's so young. I think he's going to be one of the legendary linebackers by the time he gets out of here. The other guys, I think they'll come around. Again, we got to wait and see. You know, that's what practice is for. That's what learning the new scheme is for, and all that. There's definitely the talent level there. There is no question. We've got some guys that pass the eyeball test and can run and do all the things they have to. Can they make plays? And that's the bottom line of linebackers. I mean, what makes you work better than everybody else? It makes plays. So can the other guys come in and make plays? The guys that make plays will play. If we make a lot of plays, we'll win a lot of football games. And with a defensive line in front of us that's as good and talented and having to take on double teams, the linebackers should be free to fly.
Coach Weddell, what do you think the biggest issue was? You can talk defense, offense, you can talk culture, whatever it may be, the last few years. Like, why has it not worked these last 3 years?
Gosh, that's a $78 million question. But I think it still comes down to the chemistry and ability when you get kids out of the portal, how you handle the NIL. And I think a lot of it is in the early days of the portal, which we're still trying to just go through. You look at film, you look at people, and boy, he's talented. Yes, he'll fit in. But will he fit in our dressing room? Will he fit in the A&M culture? There's something special there. And I really think it's been more of a problem that way than a schematic problem. Now, offensively, I think we had two different theories last year with, Jimbo turning things over, but really, was he turning things over, that kind of stuff. I don't know. But I really think that the difference in college football is you look at the Alabama teams and their culture and the Georgia teams and how everything in the locker room and they pull for each other. It's just a different world. And on the teams that I've had that have been successful, going back to the 98 championship team with Dan Campbell and Dat Lynn, unbelievable locker room culture. And I think that's the key that when you go to the portal, there's a heck of a lot of good players. Let's make sure we get the kids out of the portal and the NIL doesn't affect us from a negative standpoint that why is so-and-so getting so much and I'm not type of a deal. I think we're a mini pro football right now, and we're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-olds trying to do it sometimes.
Talking to Alan Weddell here on TexAgs Radio. Coach Weddell, let's talk Connor Wickman, because the few times we've seen him start, the 8 times, he's been phenomenal, right? Like, so when you see him, if he can play 10, 12 games this year, what does the team look like? What does the offense look like?
We're going to win 10 or 12 ball games. He can do it all. First of all, he's a great leader. Second of all, he's a great kid. And third of all, he makes the locker room good. And that right there with the quarterback is the 3 boxes you got to have to start with. And then talent-wise, he's got all the tools. I mean, if he was baseball, he'd be what they call him, a 5-star, a 5-person deal. He's 5-star for a reason in football. He's just got to stay healthy, learn the system, play within himself, But he's not Johnny Manziel, but he's dadgum good, and he's got good players around him to get the ball to, and all that kind of stuff. If the offensive line can come around, and I think they're taking it personal this year, then I think that we're going to be really, really good offensively and protect our quarterback, and as he learns the scheme. As fast as Wickman can progress, will be as fast as the offense can progress, and that's the key in winning the Southeast Conference. Defense will keep us in the game. Offense has to find a way to win it in the fourth quarter.
Alan Weddell with us here on TexAgs Radio. All right. A lot of people know this. Sometimes I bring it up and I cringe. You went to Texas. What do you think about the Longhorns this year?
I think they're pretty good talent-wise. I'm not going to take that away from them. I think they're well coached. They've got some talent. I think they still have. Let me put it this way: Austin is an easy place to recruit to. Austin because of the culture of the city and everything, is a hard place to play at. It's a hard place to coach sometimes. So how Wellstar can keep the team focused and not lose to that Mississippi State or that that Kentucky or that team they shouldn't lose to is going to be the key. They got a tough schedule. They're not going to win 12 ball games in a row this year. They got too tough of a schedule. So we'll see. And that game's a long, long way away. The game against it. I'm just glad it's happening. Type of stuff. Great rivalry. I've been a part of it on both sides of the ball. And Texas is good. When Texas is good and A&M is good, it's good for Texas football. And people want to come down here and play football at either one of those schools. There's only 85 scholarships you can have. There's plenty of great players out there, so both schools can be very good. And put us in the right bracket. Let's play for a national championship.
Coach Weddell, I love you, but I don't think Texas's schedule is all that hard. But that being said, they do have some marquee names on there because Michigan, even though I don't think it's the Michigan of last year, it's hard to play in Ann Arbor. Obviously, they host Georgia, and they come to Kyle Field. Those three are definitely, but the rest of them, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, but I think it's the point that you just made a moment ago is the exact truth. Can you get up every week? Because in the SEC, you have to. Even the teams that you don't think are good can beat you on any given Saturday.
And that's been Texas' problem over the last number of regimes there. They lose the game they're not supposed to lose, type stuff. And they beat Oklahoma when they're not supposed to, but then they get beat by, a Kansas or somebody. So, that's the key. That's the key in the Southeast Conference is you got to win all the games you're supposed to win and then win most of the ones that you're not. So it's a battle. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, they don't have the toughest schedule there. I think they play more politics in Austin than they do anything else. So but they think they're going to run this conference. They're not. They're in with the big boys now.
Well, Oklahoma in with the big boys as well. They have a tough schedule. What do you think about their transition to the SEC?
They don't have the talent level that the top tier have. They're a fifth, sixth, right in there somewhere, I believe, right talent level wise. Now Oklahoma does this; they're going to make a commitment. There's no doubt football means an awful lot in Oklahoma, especially Sooner football. So they're going to make the commitment to do good. I like Venable. I've known him personally since I was at A&M. He's a good coach. He'll have a good staff. It'll mean a lot to him. They've got to increase the talent level a little bit. They have to learn to use the NIL, and if they can do that and bring some talent in, they can compete with anybody. There's no doubt about that. Right now, I don't think they're up there with the Alabama, Georgias, Tennessees, and Texas, and I'll put A&M in that group there. They're right there below that bunch, but they're going to be good. There's no one bad, really. I mean, there's no one bad.
There is nobody bad. So who are some coaches, defensive coaches, maybe head coaches that you kind of gravitate and pay attention to because you like their style, the way they go about their business?
Well, I just think anybody on the defensive side of the ball, you're going with the attitude. If they don't score, they can't win. And so, that's a big thing there. And we realize the game has changed so much with the spread offense, the number of plays everybody runs, and that kind of stuff. I mean, I can remember when we installed a hurry-up offense my last year at A&M. After Game 5, we had played as many snaps as we had in 7.5 games the year before. So the depth on defense is so important, and I think you have to recruit to the depth on defense. You just can't go out there and say, "Hey, I got a great defensive line." You better have two great defensive lines because they're going to get a lot of snaps in there and spread the field means athletes on athletes out there. So the point spread, we used to say score 17, 21 points, the game's over. You got to add a couple touchdowns to that nowadays to make it make it feel secure, even then you don't sometimes. So the game has totally changed, but I still think a defensive mindset, especially in practice, I think it carries over into the game, and it'll be interesting to see with a defensive mindset head coach at A&M again what the difference is.
Coach Weddell, last thing for you, and I think the answer is obvious, but maybe you have a different perspective. If you chose a position group that will make or break this season from being 7-5, 8-4 team to maybe a 9-3, 10-2 type of season, what position group would you pick?
Well, I think there's a couple of them. I think the defensive line has to play up to their expectations. I think Wigman has to stay healthy. I think those two things are the important things. I think the now for Wigman to be good, he can't do it by himself. We know we got some good running backs. The young receivers have to come through. I think that's the biggest question mark in there. Can on both sides of the ball, the back end, can these new secondary people, can they play in Southeast Conference football? There's a question there. And can these young receivers, can they come around and make the plays when Wigman gets them the ball out there? So everybody's looking at the offensive line and all that. Offensive line is going to be the offensive line, but let's see how the receivers and the secondary hold up. If they hold up, then we're a 10-win season, type stuff. If they don't, then we're back to, we're fighting to find that 8th win sometimes.
Coach Weddell, great stuff as always, sir. Thank you so much for making time. We'll see you here in studio soon.
Definitely so. Like I say, starting about the 22nd, I'll be in College Station every Tuesday and Wednesday. So see you then.
See you, buddy. Take care. Coach Weddell there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate his time here on the program. All right, we'll hit a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll try to read a text message or two and get some final thoughts before we start the 10 o'clock hour. It's TexAgs Radio. And we're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio in about, I don't know, hour and a half. What did I say with such an angry face? RBF. Anyway, in about an hour and a half, we're going to talk with Coach Elko, the coordinators. Not on this show. We'll go across the street and do that, but we'll have that content for you on TexAgs.com. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. We got a text from Hunter, right?
Yes, we do. Hunter in BCS. Kind of a question, kind of a comment. Says it's hard for Arkansas to be overranked when they're not ranked or even on the radar.
He also adds, football talk is awesome. Like, we're having legitimate football talk, and then in a couple weeks, we'll be having pregame talk, right? A whole week of getting ready for it. All right, so let me tell you about our number 3 on the program. We're going to talk to Ralph Russo of the Associated Press. He's been monitoring the whole Michigan scandal story. He's been on top of that. Then 10:35, our Charean Williams will join us from Pro Football Talk. Chit-chat about some Aggies in the NFL, plus some other storylines there in the NFL. If you got a question or comment, you can do it 979-693-1150. If you call, we'll pick it up there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. So don't be surprised if our next guest has to bolt during the middle of the interview because he's a breaking news journalist, right? This guy breaks stories all the time. Ralph Russo from the Associated Press on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Ralph, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. It's you know, the lead up to the season sometimes is busier than the season itself. So you never know if it's going to be a quiet day or something's going to happen at Michigan or just you got to be on your toes. I would just say that.
I feel like I saw you at SEC Media Days, but we didn't get to connect. You were there, right?
I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. I got to say, I don't always go to the media days. They're not always as, I don't know, productive, I think, sometimes for what I do. They're obviously very structured. They're kind of a made for TV show in some ways. But it's been a couple of years since I had a chance to get to them this year. And, I don't know if I learned anything really revelatory, but it was, it's also nice to be in front of the coaches and players again and sort of get the feel for the season coming.
Ralph, let's start things off with the news you've been working on, the Michigan story. Is there anything that has advanced in the last 24 hours potentially?
I think we're just waiting for Michigan to receive the notice of allegations and also acknowledge that. They don't really necessarily need to do that. I'm sure our organization, like a lot of others, is filing, Freedom of Information Act requests to see if we can get the document, the full document. I think there's also a chance that Michigan might be a little more forthcoming and release some things because, frankly, I think Michigan wants to attack this in an aggressive way, and transparency they might feel is on their side. So I think that's the next step of this thing. We've learned some details of what's going to be in there. Possible violations alleged against Sharon Moore, probably the most interesting thing because he is the current coach. I think penalizing people who aren't there anymore is a little bit of a shrug. But I think the one thing that could affect Michigan going forward is what happens with Sharon Moore. I would also emphasize, notice of allegations is sort of still the start, not the start of the process, but still early in the process. We're probably looking at 2025 before this is resolved.
So look, two parts there. How would being proactive in this situation and transparency help Michigan? Is there a bit of news that hey, we did this because this school was doing it? Is it that kind of thing?
I think it's a little bit of a court of public opinion, frankly, trying to position yourself to say, for example, in my story, I had some sources telling me that, yes, Sharon Moore deleted some text exchanged with Connor Stallions. However, Michigan went back, found those texts, and handed them over to the NCAA. And sources were were quick to emphasize that it wasn't Michigan was cooperative in that sense, right? So now you take that. I take that information, I jump to the next step and think, well, what does Michigan think of those texts? Do they think that maybe there's really nothing in them that implicates him other than, hey, it's Sharon Moore texting with a GA or, an analyst whose job it is to steal signs. And again, I'll remind people, sign stealing itself is not necessarily illegal. The NCAA has no rules against that other than you can't use electronic equipment. So if this is just your sign stealing guy and you don't know he's sending people to games recording, maybe there's nothing incriminating. So again, I'm being a little speculative there and playing that out, but I think it becomes a matter of court of public opinion as much as it is how it could position Michigan going forward with the NCAA.
Ralph, I spoke yesterday on the show, and I'm naive to the situation, but somebody asked me, could this cost Sharon Moore his job? And I'm like, no, they probably knew all this stuff whenever they hired him. They wouldn't have put him in this position. They would have just moved on. Am I wrong?
So I think your instinct is right there. Now, again, I hate to say will it, can it? We're just a little bit far out. But again, I'll sort of go along with your instinct there. They hired Sharon Moore having a pretty good idea about this stuff was going on. This notice of allegations is not going to be new information for the most part to Michigan. And so they hired Sharon Moore knowing this stuff was going on. Now, you could say it's Michigan thumbing their nose and saying, hey, tough, this is our guy. We're standing by our guy, and we'll see what happens, as we fight it out. But my sense of it is probably not something that cost him his job. Probably more likely something that could be resolved with a suspension, which is all the rage in college football right now. I mean, hell, Michigan, won a national championship with its head coach only coaching. How many games did they play? 9 of the 15 games last year. So, you get costing him his job does seem a bit extreme to me right now for what I know.
And then the Central Michigan angle. Did they do anything wrong? Because if they give a credential to somebody or a sideline pass, that's not necessarily cooperating unless they have, hey, I'm going to be here and I'm doing this.
Yeah, so I think we don't know a ton about that other than it was confirmed that was him, right? Mm-hmm. And ESPN, I'm going to give ESPN credit on that. I haven't had a source confirm that part of it, so I will leave that to ESPN, credit ESPN for having seen the documents, where I've only had sources sort of tell me what they have seen in the documents. So what I would also say about Central Michigan is, I almost hesitate to connect dots, but recently they let go of a couple of staffers at a time of the year that seems an odd move when training camp's about to start. So I don't know if Central Michigan's in huge trouble here. I would doubt that they are in huge trouble, but it does suggest to me that when they dug into it, they found somebody up to some shenanigans that may have been warded off from the head coach and people, people higher up the food chain, which is very possible. I mean, if you've ever been around, a football game, credentials and stuff like that, the head coach is not going to know everybody who's on the sideline.
Ralph Russo with us here on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Ralph, I feel like this is the most Michigan I've ever done on this show, but I have one follow-up question because I'm interested in that Week 2 game against Texas. How good is Michigan going to be from a football perspective this year? We know they can handle adversity. They've done it before. It is going to be a similar defense, but a different offense.
Yeah, I think the defense looks loaded again. You have two of the best defensive tackles in the country, and Graham and Grant, and Will Johnson is a star corner. They should be pretty fine on that end of things. I hate to boil it down to it's the quarterback, but we haven't seen Alex Orji throw, right? He's been used a little bit as a runner to supplement what they were doing with J.J. McCarthy. I think if this kid has the ability to sling a little bit, Michigan probably should be pretty good offensively, combined with a very good defense. And now you have a team that I don't know if is up to the challenge of Ohio State and Oregon in the Big Ten, but should still be pretty darn good. And Texas at home, that should be Texas going to Michigan. That's a pretty tough game. If that passing game is still real glitchy, another thing to keep in mind, the offensive line is almost totally rebuilt as well. They've got at least one player who's got a lot of experience there, but you generally trust Michigan to get it right along the offensive line. But I think it's as simple as how good is this passing game? The one other thing I would add on the defense is Jesse Minter was a really good defensive coordinator, and they did some very complicated things. They bring in Wink Martindale from the from the NFL. I know he has a similar tree. He was at the Ravens, where the Michigan gets a lot of its coaching talent, but it is a different defense. So I think that needs to be factored in as well for how good Michigan will play defense this year.
Let me ask another Big Ten question, but from an Ohio State perspective. Is beating Michigan enough and being in the playoffs enough for Ryan Day, or does he have to not only beat Michigan, get to the college football championship final? What is the right narrative for Ryan Day and his position?
So, I think if they beat Michigan, get into the playoff, win the Big Ten, there might even be some room for winning the Big Ten as long as they're in the playoff, right? Those two things don't necessarily have to fall in place. You could be hell, we could all get in the playoff this year without winning your conference and win the whole thing. I know that's happened before, but that's more of a possibility this year. I think they'll forgive them losing the Big Ten title game if you go to the national championship game, right? The thing that I believe that there is not a lot of wiggle room for is beating Michigan. Right. I think if you don't beat Michigan this year, it creates a very strained dynamic no matter what else you do. aside from maybe winning a national championship. I would also suggest if you can't beat this Michigan team this year, which is a little bit of a rebuild in where you're at home and you've loaded up, like you're supposed to be on the top of your trend, right? You're trending upwards, and Michigan has taken a little bit of a step back with coaching changes and turnover on the roster. If you can't beat this Michigan team at home, you probably can't win a national championship. So, to get into this conversation of, well, what if they lose to Michigan and win a national championship? Is that really, can that happen?
Ralph, let me ask you about Notre Dame. A&M obviously plays them week 1. They lost our left tackle, Charles Jagashaw. What are you hearing about Notre Dame this season? Obviously, that's a huge hit that just happened yesterday, but offensively with Mike Denbrook and defensively, they're always solid.
Yeah, I think they're very confident in their defense. The one thing I still worry about Notre Dame defensively, even though they've been super solid defensively under Al Golden, very good defensive backfield, and with Benjamin Morris leading the way, is they're still not huge up front, right? Their defensive tackles, Howard Cross, Riley Mills, I think is the other tackle there, 290-ish, good players, really good players. But the thing I would always worry about them facing a team like A&M is, do you get a little worn down with that size difference? They just don't have those huge building block defensive tackles like Texas A&M or some of the other SEC teams have. And I think on the offensive side, it's like, hey, how healthy is Riley Leonard and how quickly is he acclimated to this offense, which I think will benefit his mobility if he is fully recovered from his ankle. And the offensive line's a big deal, especially the first week. And that's another school. Like, we know Notre Dame has talented offensive linemen. They will figure it out. But on the road at Kyle Field against a team whose strength is its defensive line, that's a tricky matchup for Notre Dame week 1.
Ralph, I do want to ask about A&M because I feel like when I talk to national perspectives or national analysts, they're very intrigued by what this A&M team could be because of the change in culture, because of Mike Elko. When you see them, kind of like, what do you think? What kind of team can they be here in 2024?
Yeah, so when I was at SEC Media Days, I kind of snuck into Texas A&M's private session with its local beat reporters because I was going to have to leave and I was going to miss Elko. And I've known Coach Elko for a little while, since back to his Notre Dame days, so I figured they wouldn't mind if I was in there. And the question I asked him was, how much of your job was to bring the temperature down around the program this year? Just create a little bit of normalcy, quiet, just, hey man, let's just go out and have fun and not worry about other things. Because the last few years, there's been a lot of stuff. And he acknowledged, in his session and when we talked to him, when he talked up on the podium, that they were very proud of a quiet off season. So I do wonder, it's a talented team. I think you have playmakers who should emerge, but I think you're wondering who exactly those will be, right? I do wonder how much just bringing in guys who will create a little normalcy and bring the temperature down around the program helps get the best out of this team, which has a pretty tough schedule and a pretty talented quarterback. So, I have a hard time figuring out what my expectations for them should be in a year with all this turnover. But I got to think that, again, just simply having a little less pressure around the program, negative vibes, has to bring out the best in these guys.
And then, are we reading too much into the Elko versus Riley Leonard dynamics for week 1? Because, nobody knows Riley Leonard as good as Coach Elko, which I think is a storyline. But again, both guys are in different places.
No, I do think that there's probably something to that. Now, I will say, you're also dealing with a relatively new offensive system for Notre Dame, but you're veteran coaches who have been around each other a lot, right? I think there's probably a certain amount of knowledge of Elko's system still lingering around Notre Dame. So I think it's an interesting storyline, and I think it's somewhat relevant because, again, you do know some of this quarterback's tendencies. Is that the thing that's going to decide the game? I would say probably not. I think what will decide the game is if they figure out who's going to play left tackle and block Nick Scarton, right? I think that's probably the more relevant piece of information as opposed to just Elko's knowledge of Riley Leonard.
If you were to do different tiers of the SEC, you've got Georgia in this tier, maybe Texas in your eyes or Ole Miss is in that tier. How would you kind of break down tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 potentially in the SEC?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot because I think that's one of the things that makes the SEC so interesting in this transition year is that I kind of wonder if there's how big is tier 2, right? I think it'd be tempting to just put Georgia in its own tier. And then maybe you can convince me Texas is in that tier. And then that next tier starts at Alabama. But, does that tier go down to all the way down to A&M? In other words, is that like an 8-team tier, that second tier? Or is Alabama maybe Ole Miss, and that's maybe that third tier? And then the next step of it is a really big tier. But I think that there's a big swath of teams I was talking about this with Greg McElroy at SEC Media Days. I was on him and Cole Kubelik's show. And Greg made this point of he thinks there are 9 SEC teams that could make the playoff. Maybe not great chance to make the playoff, but have at least you can make a reasonable argument. And the 9th one, I think, is Texas A&M. Maybe Oklahoma. I think I put them together. So I just think that there's this really wide swath from about LSU to A&M, Tennessee, Missouri, Oklahoma. I'm probably forgetting one in there that is really hard to pin down, but one of them could emerge as a serious contender. And frankly, one or two of those teams might go 6-6 because the league is so tough.
Ralph, I want to follow that up because I don't expect A&M to make the playoffs this year. I think they're a team that wouldn't surprise me if they got there because of the talent that they've had the last few years. But I just want to be in the conversation in late October, early November, hey, there's a path here. That's kind of where I am right, at least for year one of the Coach Elko experience.
Sure. Listen, I think if you can get to the Texas game with, I would say a chance to make the playoff. Honestly, that seems like a little bit of a stretch in year one. I think, Weigman would have to be just phenomenal, like the best of himself. You'd have to have, again, some playmakers really emerge. That offensive line would have to really come together. You're talking best case scenario there. But if you can get to that Texas game with a chance to win 9 games, I can't imagine that's not a successful first year with all that A&M has gone through. I can't imagine you can't qualify. The A&M game, we have a chance to win 9 games. That's got to be considered. Oh, excuse me, the Texas game with a chance to win 9 seems like a success to me.
Well, Ralph, let's go back to that Connor Weigman comment before I let you go. If Connor shows us what he's shown in 8 starts, 19 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, there's this narrative that he's injury prone. He's had 1 injury in college football. If he is that guy that we've seen in the Miami game, even though they lost last year, and all these games where he's thrown for 300 and no interceptions, a couple touchdown passes, if that's the case, then those kind of storylines are totally possible, right?
I think very much so. Again, you know that roster better than me. I see a secondary that probably needs to come together a little bit, and an offensive line. But I think that's sort of the beauty of where the SEC is this year, right? You have Weigman, Jackson Arnold, I would say Nico at Tennessee, Nussmeier at LSU. None of these guys have very long resumes, but they're all former 4 and 5 stars, right? So the ceiling is all very high for them. And the one that clicks, all of a sudden that team that maybe we don't think of as a playoff contender very much could be a playoff contender. And that's why, I have a hard time making those tiers, because one of those guys could very well push his team up into the next tier.
Ralph, great stuff as always, sir. Thanks so much for making time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Always appreciate it.
Good seeing you, man. Ralph Russo there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate his time here. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with an open segment. Right now, though, let's talk about Heritage Films. That's Chance McClain's company. He's my buddy. He was my boss back at 1560 The Game, but he's been a dear friend for a long, long time. The most creative guy I know. He's he's done red carpet shows. He's done Broadway musicals. He started a radio station. The guy's just a storyteller. He's the best at what they do. And at Heritage Films, what they want to do is tell your story. They want to tell your documentary for your grandfather, your father, your uncle, your niece, somebody important in your life, or maybe you just want to leave that as a gift to your family. Here's our family story. done in a 2-hour documentary form. You don't have to be Taylor Swift, right? You could have a documentary done for your family business, your family ranch. There's so many different things. You can also have a documentary done on like just good times with your buddies and your friends and your family, right? Tailgating is the one that I keep bringing up recently because if you guys get together every Saturday for an Aggie football game at Kyle Field and you bring your crew together and you've got the cook and you've got the TV installer and all these things that you have to do to get a great tailgate going, have that be a story, right? And you can share those moments. Or maybe you have a group of buddies that play golf together all the time. Let chance be an eye in the sky for awesome stories. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. The phone number for Heritage Film, 713-893-8341. That is 713-893-8341 is Heritage Films. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant. News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn is there. Caitlin, what little news did you have that kind of caught my interest during the break?
We've got another hot topic from Matthew Dawson. Yep. Pitbull is actually set to purchase the naming rights to FIU's football stadium, pending a vote.
Pitbull Field?
Pitbull Stadium. Did you go to a game there?
Oh my God.
Pending a vote.
I've been to FIU before. It's in the heart of Miami.
Yeah, Mr. 305.
Mr. Worldwide.
That's Miami's area code.
So let me tell you, he's part of my community. He's Cuban. I don't claim him. I'm not a big Pitbull guy. Don't like the music. But I'm going to tell you the biggest reason I don't like, and I've said this on the air before. Humble brag, I went to, and Nick's heard the story. I went to the All-Star game in Miami in 2017. If I remember correctly, the Astros had 8 or 9 players that year that went. He performed at the Home Run Derby, okay? But his attire to me was disgraceful. In fact, it upset all Cubans around the world. He wore a baseball jersey, which is fine, tucked into blue jean shorts.
No.
You don't tuck in a baseball, unless you're playing baseball, with baseball pants. You don't tuck in, am I wrong here, Nick? I mean, you're a baseball guy. Can you tuck in a baseball jersey into blue jean shorts?
That's pretty nasty. What year was this?
2017. You can probably Google it.
That's what I'm
find
doing. I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, find that. All-Star Game performance, blue jean shorts, and I don't know. He probably had I think they probably wore a All-Star jersey or whatever. Not a good look. I know that guy makes bangers. It's just not the stuff that I listen to. Caitlin, you laughing at the way I said bangers?
I am.
Is that still a term that people use?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just made me laugh. Good.
Like, because I'm an old man talking about bangers?
No, you're so current. I thought you would be a Pitbull fan. I thought you would like some of his songs.
I mean, he's got a couple songs that are head nod, but I've never in my life have I put it like whoever Olin was talking about earlier. I've never purposely put a Pitbull song on my Spotify playlist ever.
Well, as a part of this deal, he would create an anthem for FIU, post about the school on his social media 12 times a year, and appear at one athletics fundraising event per year through the term of agreement. So it sounds like we might see a little more of Pitbull over the next
The NIL with Pitbull is going to be crazy.
Yeah, whoa, not a look.
Oh.
Not a look. There it is.
Well, that's not what I remember. I remember him having jean shorts.
That's from 2017, though.
Yeah, well, maybe he
That's
changed.
He went full uniform, but that's like a leather dress belt. That's not even like a baseball belt.
That might be worse than I described. I remember blue jean
worse.
shorts like it's John Cena. Put that back up, Nick. I want to see that again. That's worse.
That's bad.
And look, I know I'm known for wearing a tight shirt. I get it. Like I'm tight shirt Nuño. Get it? Schmeedum guy. That's a little too tight.
Agreed.
Nick, good work there. So I lied about the blue jean shorts, or maybe he changed. Maybe he had 2 performances. I don't know. But that's a bad look. Thank you for finding that, Nick. All right, let's do this. We still, we got a minute left. I was going to hit a break there, but we got a minute there. Do we have any messages on the YouTube page that you would like to get into, Miss Caitlin Torn?
Let's see. We have, Moose is confirmed, sleeved in the game and in practice.
Oh, he's got sleeves in the video game?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that was, a lot of people were worried about that. My brothers have been playing that nonstop.
I have not played yet. I have not played that game yet. I know
Matthew Dawson just like carrying the YouTube chat back here. He's had his fingerprints all over the show today.
By the way,
he's done a great job.
Drew Tamu on the YouTube page, who's got a nice YouTube channel himself. He does really cool work. He apparently put Matthew Dawson as the analyst. Now Matthew Dawson is selling his services to the YouTube world. And now he's got to tell people all his hot football takes.
That's pretty crazy. I'm considering, firing him off of my football crew. We're going to go cover Rudder together. That might be an open position now.
Can Nick Savage get an invite?
Literally never been asked to be on a podcast.
You guys picked Matthew Dawson, who's very good, by the way. Very nice young man.
Yeah,
too.
to be fair, ask Matthew before me.
Yeah,
I don't know anything.
He's so much smarter than Nick. I agree. He's smarter than me, by the way. Probably more handsome than Nick. Not going there for myself. That being said, sorry guys, I hear people laughing. That being said, I think Nick Savage needs to go on a world tour of podcasts, and I'm sure Billy would love it.
Agreed.
And for that reason, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, you're going opposite. I'm doing my own thing. What's next? Luke Evangelist going to be doing podcast?
Oh, he would take it at the drop of a hat. Just
yellow hair.
Yeah.
Just looking like Eminem's, like Estelle Getty version, the Golden Girl Eminem. Like, come on. And what else? We got to have Cade Bickham doing hits. Ronnie Pui. Carson Stein, who's working. He's going to start doing podcasts.
I would listen to a Riley Puig podcast for sure. Yeah.
Riley's sneaky smart. I know he doesn't necessarily look it. I'm kidding. But he's sneaky smart.
He's fishing right now. He's supposed to send me fishing pictures. So we'll see what he catches.
He should take me. We'll hit a break. Can we talk to a real Hall of Famer when we come back? Let's talk to Charean Williams. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country. That's what you call tap dancing. Again, I'm showing Kaylee how we tap dance here, and Caitlin already knows. We're tap dancing. Moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. They have great deals on their website. You should go to the website and see what they have and get a kind of a feel for what they have on the lot. But here's a couple things you need to know. The customer service, the pricing, the entire experience is second to none. They have the best customer service when you go there. One thing you can take home with you, they have complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. They have free oil changes for life as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You go there, they're going to do the oil change for you. They are a proud supporter of Aggie Athletics. They are the very best at making sure that they support Aggie Athletics and also give back to the community here. And they also have a great selection of commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, and several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. So check out Caldwell Country Chevrolet. And remember, it's not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. This is the worst. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. No truth to the rumor that Charean Williams loves pit bull, but we're going to ask her from Pro Football Talk and, of course, our Hall of Famer. Charean's with us. Charean, good morning.
Okay, I missed that. Did I love what?
Pitbull? Are you a big Pitbull fan, the singer guy?
I do love. I was just listening to Pitbull. How'd you know that? Are you looking at my radio?
Well, you know, everybody can tap into everybody's phones into today's world, Charean.
Yes, I listen to Serious Top Hits. So I was listening to Pitbull was just on, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I do like Pitbull.
Hey, Charean, I want to start things off with a couple of look. Not that there's a lot of Aggies in the NFL news per se, but have you gotten any feedback, any word on Edgerrin Cooper?
Well, he's been banged up, and that's the unfortunate part for him. And hopefully he's back at practice. I haven't checked. I'll check today and see if he's back at practice. But minor injury and just a little banged up, but he needs all the practice time he could get as a rookie. But, man, they were raving about him out of the off-season program, just how quickly he had picked things up. And Matt LaFleur talked about he tried to intentionally trick him on a play. Just to see, his knowledge of the playbook and all that sort of thing. And so they intentionally tried to trick him, and he didn't fall for it. And Matt LaFleur said, that's when I knew, this guy's ready to play and ready to go. So I think he's impressed them enough that he's going to be on the field a lot, probably a 3-down linebacker for them. And even in the substitution packages, which is huge for a rookie to be able to stay on the field, rookie linebacker to be able to stay on the field, in those third substitution packages when they sub out those linebackers. So he's been outstanding. Hopefully he stays healthy. That's the key for him this year, I think. And if he does, he's going to have a great year. I already picked it for Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. So hopefully he stays healthy and proves me right.
Our team in the back put a couple notes together for us. Apparently, McKinley Jackson carted out of Bengals practice the other day. Have you heard anything about McKinley?
I have not. I did not know that. I will check on that one today too. In fact, I need to write about that if it's serious. So hopefully he's not serious. See a lot of these, and a lot of times for ankles and stuff, they'll cart them off, and hopefully that's what it was. That it was an ankle injury, even a high ankle injury. Obviously, is better than a torn ACL or something else it could be when you're caught up. And occasionally they cart them off to have IVs because they're cramping so bad they can't get off the field. So hopefully it's something like that's minor with anybody that's carted off rather than a torn ACL.
Charean Williams there on the Boss Firearms Hotline here on TexAgs Radio. Charean, let's talk about Canton. How was your experience this past weekend?
Yeah.
Obviously, some huge names going in. One that I know quite well, and Andre Johnson. Yeah. Just how was the experience?
It was fun. A Hall of Fame weekend is always great. I was trying to figure out how many this is for me. I missed at least 4 of them because I was covering Summer Olympics, and probably a couple more. So I imagine it's somewhere around 25 Hall of Fames that I've been to. I didn't think this class was quite as sexy as some others that we've had. I guess because we didn't have a skill position player in there, maybe other than Andre Johnson, but maybe that was why. I don't know. I just didn't see this class as real sexy, but it was a good class and had some good edge rushers in there. And so I'm proud of all those guys for going in. Had rain delayed on Saturday, so the ceremony started an hour and 45 minutes late, but did get to go to Andre Johnson's party. The highlight for me of Andre Johnson's party, which was a very good party, but the highlight for me, I talked to a ton of the coaches, was talking to Gerard Johnson, and we talk a lot about Aggie football, and we talk a lot about just where he is in the NFL. It took him a while, and I think he's got steady progression up. I think he'll probably be an offensive coordinator next year. I would expect him to be with the Texans as Bobby Slowick goes on and does what we think he's going to do, which is get a head coaching job. Then I think he'll be the offensive coordinator for the Texans. But he's on a trajectory that's going to make him an NFL head coach in not too long. And he's just so impressive to talk to, and his knowledge of the game and everything else. By the way, he's very high on this Aggie defense. He thinks it's going to be historic defense. He's talked to some of the coaches and is really fired up about this defense bringing back the wrecking crew. And we talked about Connor Wegman, and he feels good about him and says if he has a great year, he's watched him enough. He thinks he's going to be a first-round draft pick. So all those things are good. It really got me excited about Aggie football. He's going to be there for the Notre Dame game, he said. So he got me excited. This is probably, I know we're getting close, and maybe that's what it is too, but just some of the things he got me encouraged about where we are as a program and the type of year that we're going to have.
Sure, you got me excited after your conversation with somebody else. That was great. I do want to follow that up, though, with Steve Cragthorpe, who unfortunately passed away at 59 yesterday. He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's back in 2011, was obviously the offensive coordinator of A&M in 1998 when they won the Big 12 championship. Do you have any memories or just any run-ins with Steve?
No, I just know what a great coach he was. I don't know if I even met him personally, and I didn't know him personally, but just, I just think he was an outstanding football coach and had a couple of head coaching jobs. The job he did at Tulsa was fantastic, and then went on to Louisville and was good there. His stint in the NFL was very short. He spent 2 years as a quarterback's coach with the Bills, but Drew Bledsoe had one of his best seasons the year that Cragthorpe was the quarterback's coach for the Bills. So just wherever he went, good things seemed to follow him. And, just so young, he's my age. And you think about that, when somebody your age dies and you just feel like that's so young, and it is young, and it's unfortunate. And Parkinson's is just a killer. So, just it's sad. And I think, seeing Steve McMichael, the Longhorn great, with ALS, and I hope he was able to comprehend on Saturday that he went in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But, just seeing him in that bedridden, and just what an awful disease ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease is too. So those two kind of hit me a little bit. As young as those guys are, as vibrant, as much as you remember them in football and for what they did in football, it's just it's a sad day.
Charean Williams with us here on TexAgs Radio. Myles Garrett practiced for the first time this week. What are you hearing about Myles?
Yeah, he had a hamstring injury on the last day of the off-season program, and so they were easing him back in. Soft tissue injuries. You want to make sure. In fact, I have one right now, and I'm trying to heal. But you want to make sure they're fully healed before you get back out there, because it could be worse damage if it's not fully healed, and then it's going to affect you the whole entire year. So they were very, Casey never liked the word cautious. He liked the word deliberate. So that's what the word I always use. The Browns have been very deliberate in getting him back to practice. And so he is now back at practice and practicing. And, everybody expects Myles to do what Myles did last year and have a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year. It's going to be interesting. Brandon Ayuk could get traded, and the Browns are one of the two teams that the 49ers have agreed to trade terms with. And if Brandon Ayuk can work out a contract, missed up both of those. If Brandon Ayuk can work out a contract with either the Browns or the Patriots, he will be traded to one of those two teams. So that's where they are. And they probably would trade Amari Cooper back to the 49ers. I'm not so sure that Amari Cooper's not a better receiver than Brandon Ayuk, but they're both really solid receivers, different type of receivers, but both really good receivers. So that would be interesting for that Browns offense to have that weapon instead of Amari Cooper. But I like where the Browns are. I mean, it comes down to Deshaun Watson, because that defense is going to be good again with Myles doing what he does. But I expect another big year from Myles and another Defensive Player of the Year candidacy for him, as long as he stays healthy. And that's always the key in the NFL or in any football league, high school or college either, is staying healthy. You got to be able to stay healthy and stay on the field.
Sure. Are we possibly going to see an even better version of Micah Parsons this year?
We could, simply because I think Mike Zimmer is going to use him in different ways. I think he's going to move him around, which is going to be interesting. Everybody's waiting to see how they're going to use Micah Parsons and exactly what Mike Zimmer's going to do with him. But I do think you're going to see him move around. Maybe play more linebacker than he has over the last 2 years. He lined up at linebacker more in his rookie season than he did the last 2 seasons. And I think we'd see a little more of that. He's lost weight. He's lost 10 pounds. So he's small to be at 240 to be going up against those defensive linemen play after play after play. And so I think you might see him at linebacker maybe a little bit more into different type of looks for him and for that defense than what we've seen in the past. So having said all that, that could translate into a even bigger season for Michael Parsons than what he has had in his career. And he's been one of the best defensive players in football in his career. Now, he hasn't played that well in the postseason, I'll say that. So he needs to play better in the postseason when it counts the most. And hopefully he can do that. But, he's in a contract year. They're not going to probably give him a contract this year. So that's going to motivate him probably even more to have a bigger year than what we've seen out of Michael Parsons. And we've already seen 3 really great years. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory if he continues to do what he's done over his first 3 years, kind of like Myles Garrett. I think if Myles Garrett retired today, I think he'd be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 5 years from now. But he's got a lot of good football left in him. So Michael's got to play a few more years, obviously, to get to that. But he's certainly on that path with what he's done so far in his career. And I do think he can get even better than where he is right now.
Charean, I saw that Daniel Jones was involved in a little scuffle with the Lions the other day. He earned the respect of many of his teammates.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Those joint practices that they have, they're good. I know they like going against other teams, but there's no penalties for fighting in those things, so that's what it turns into, is a fight fest. And from all accounts, the Giants hung with their, as Dan Campbell likes to call them, the knee biters, hung with them pretty well. So the Giants really showed me something in that, how physical they were in that practice. We knew the Lions were, just their head coach that gives them that. But I think we saw something out of the Giants, that they're going to have some fight in them this year. And, I still think they have a chance to finish last in that division, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think teams, when they go against the Giants, are going to have to play really hard to get that win against the Giants. So it's going to be an interesting division with Daniel Jones needing to play very well for the Giants. And with Jane Daniels, what is he going to do with the Commanders? Because I think they have a roster. I think that defense is going to be better with Dane Quinn, and I think they have a roster that they can compete if Jane Daniels plays well. So to me, it's going to be a really interesting division to see how it turns out. And the same team has never repeated in that division as division champion since they've gone to the current format. So that means the Cowboys aren't going to repeat. So that makes the Eagles a favorite, I guess, in that division. But, I think all 4 teams have a chance to win that division, depending on how. Again, it always goes back to the quarterback. So some of these rookie quarterbacks are going to play great this year, and some are not. Everybody's waiting to see who's going to be that guy who's going to duplicate what C.J. Stroud did last season, which hasn't been done very often in NFL history by a rookie. But if somebody can duplicate that, whatever rookie that is, that team is going to have a really great year. So I know J.J. McCarthy's looked fantastic for the Vikings. I think he ends up being the starter up there. They had already named Sam Bradford as the starter, but I'm going to be surprised if it's not J.J. McCarthy. And by all accounts, he's really been outstanding. So it's going to be interesting with these rookie quarterbacks to see which one really stands out this year over the others. And to me, the rookie receivers as well are going to be interesting to watch. There are some great rookie receivers in this class. And who's going to be the best one out of them? I'm probably going to put my money on Malik Neighbors, but I tell you what, Marvin Harrison Jr., it's always hard to bet against him.
Charean, great stuff. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, David.
See ya. Charean Williams there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back with some final thoughts. It's TexAgs Radio. All right, it's time to end the day with Double Dave's. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggie Land since 1984 with your favorite pizza and your favorite world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. All right, tomorrow on the show, this is what I can tell you. He doesn't know, but I think Jason Howell is going to be on the show. I should probably tell him that he's going to be on the show tomorrow. Jason, can you do the show? Text me if you heard of this. There's that. All right, we'll do recruiting country. John Harris has been gone for like 3 weeks. He'll be back because he's had training camp. He's got some things to worry about. So we'll talk to Johnny Harris, all right? And we'll also talk to Blair Anderson, who's now the new director of swimming and diving for Texas A&M. So we'll talk to Blair. I should probably call her Coach Anderson because I haven't met her in person yet. We'll have her in studio tomorrow. So looking forward to doing all that. How about our awesome guest today? Olin Buchanan was okay. He was all right. I'll appreciate his time. We also had Colby Newton. He's got that cool book out about the SEC origins, and I really enjoyed the conversation with Colby.
Can I give you props real quick, David?
What's that?
You've been on a heater when it comes to getting guests and unique guests recently. So props to you. The shows have been really good recently.
Nick,
they're always good, but they've been really good. I think the past couple weeks leading up to football season. And guess what? They're gonna get better.
Nick, whatever blind spot I have, you cover those. That's how good you are.
We sure about that?
I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Also on the show, Alan Weddell, the coach. He's our friend. Ralph Russo. He has some really good information there. And, of course, the great Charean, the Dream Williams. I think that's probably the first time I've said it that way. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Tuesday. We will see you all mañana.